Hi there, it's Sasha here from Coding Rooms.
Hi, it's Angela from Coding Rooms, and today we have a very special segment of our podcast where we're going to do a demo walkthrough of some of the new functionalities to do with our assignments and auto grading. This time, not JUnit, but focusing more on Python. And before we get started, I'm going to let Sasha continue with the product updates and then share some of our what we've been up to this past week.
Awesome, thanks, Angela. So as always, we've got a lot of cool product updates, and I'll go through them at the top of the podcast. First one is the Replit export tool that we have for Chrome and Firefox. You can find the links in the description below. Are working fabulously. You can check out our tutorial for that and download all your data from Replit Classroom. You can keep your data. Or you can also send it to us at hello@codingrooms.com or via the live chat support on our site, and we'll import all your content from Replit Classroom into Coding Rooms. And we do that within 24 hours. We're also planning to open up a more formal beta testing group for some new cutting edge features that we're deploying with Coding Rooms. So also please reach out to us over email or the live support chat to figure out how you can, or to learn how you can become a part of those programs. Another really cool thing, and actually one of the things that I'm most excited about, is we're doing a full, almost a full ground up rewrite of our IDE that is going to be a lot faster, a lot more powerful, and I think a lot easier to use. And we're currently in the process of beta testing that, and we'll be soft launching it on Coding Rooms very soon. So you'll have the option to use the new version. And then once that reaches full stability, we'll help you migrate all the way through to the new version. Another cool thing that we're working on is manual grading. So you can use the Coding Rooms interface for assignments to have students submit applications or submit their projects without any test cases, and then you can actually change the grades manually. Right now you can add manual test cases, but there's no easy way to manage the grades in Coding Rooms yet, so that's coming up soon. We also deployed a simpler interface for using the interactive terminal through instances, which will become the default way to execute code into the IDE, the current version of the IDE last week. So that's really helpful if you're using a lot of input-output stuff and taking user input. And then we are going to be talking a lot about Python autograding, which is something that we've been working on ensuring that we support really well through Coding Rooms, both for input-output testing in Python, as well as using the built-in Python UnitTest library to automated unit test grading. And so I'll go into more depth on the Python auto grading later on in the podcast, but I'll hand it back over to you, Angela.
Yeah, so I just wanted to take this time to thank everyone in our community and also new users. We launched on Product Hunt yesterday, and in less than 24 hours, we've gathered more than 325 upvotes as currently speaking, because it's still going up as we speak. But currently in the filming of this video, we have more than 325 upvotes. And we have 33 5-star review ratings. And we just wanted to thank everyone in our Coding Rooms community, as well as all the new users that found out about our amazing platform through Product Hunt and the support that you guys have shown. We've seen a lot of great reviews in the comments section, and I think it's really exciting for not just the team, but I think for some of our champion users who's been with us from day one to see how far we've come. So without talking more about this, there is a link below in the video where you can go and look at our launch page. Come show us some support. And if you're an existing user and you want to comment any sort of feedback, please do that as well. The page will be, ongoing and live and for everyone to kind of just contribute forever. So take a look at our page. It's linked below. And yeah. We really hope that you enjoy some of the exclusive content as well that we've been building the past few weeks. I think there's been a lot of updates, and I think the past few podcasts, we've been talking a lot of these product updates, and we finally released a lot more product content related to kind of our product video and sort of content images of our new interface, some of our new interface designs. And I think a lot of our existing users will be excited to see kind of all the new sort of content that's on the site as well. So please be sure to check that down below. And then now we're getting into our kind of webinar topic this week. And so we've been working really hard on our assignments feature, kind of listening to a lot of teachers in our community, as well as through forums about, how to build our assignments feature better and improve it. So we wanted to use this week's podcast as a special demo session to walk through some of the auto-grading features related to, running through with Python this time, as opposed to Java. We already did a JUnit webinar, so you can also check that out on our channel. But this week we really wanted to, by popular demand, actually focus on Python. So without further ado, I'll pass it back over to Sasha, and he's going to talk more about kind of the demo.
Awesome, thanks, Angela. So in the next few minutes through the demo, I'll walk you through how to create assignments in Python on coding rooms, how to build and debug your unit tests using the built-in UnitTest library in Python, as well as how to run our standard input-output matching test cases on coding rooms with Python. Without further ado, we'll swap over to the screen share demo. Here, I'll be working through doing Python auto-grading with unit testing and input-output matching in this quick screencast. We'll cover a lot of things in a short amount of time, so feel free to pause and skip around. This is meant to be a useful learning resource for you. So first of all, we're on the management page in coding rooms, and we're going to create a course that uses Python 3 as the default language. The vast majority of what we're doing will be the same if you're in Python 3 or 2, but we definitely recommend using Python 3. So go ahead and create my course. So the first thing that we'll see when we'll jump in is our empty course page, and we'll actually go to the tab up here to create a new assignment. And Face was blocking that out a little bit. You can see the new assignment button. And we'll create our first assignment. So this will be a auto-graded Python unit test. We'll create the assignment. So first thing to do here is we'll scope out our question. So again, I'm using Markdown here to type up our question. We want students to build an auto-grader, an auto-adder of numbers, so like a calculator problem. So please implement a function called calcsum that takes two parameters and returns sum. And it should look something like this. So if we do calc sum 2 and 3, it should return 5 for us. Can do a quick preview. That looks right. Close preview. So all this is auto-saved again. I'll go ahead and build out the template first. So it's not too many changes here we need to do, other than creating the calc sums. And you do this the same way as you do it for any other problem on coding rooms. So create calc sum, and for now we'll have it return 0. And we can actually go ahead and print out calc sum 2 and 3, and that should return 0 initially, so we'll just check that this runs. Oops, I forgot our parameters, so we'll do x and y. That's why it's great to be able to run these. Great, so we get 0, that's our expected value. I'll save changes, and we can go in and build the test cases. So now the interesting part. I'll actually be showing, first of all, how to do input-output. First we'll do the unit test, then I'll do some input-output matching as well using input. So this will be our unit test. We'll add just, say, 10 points here. This is an arbitrary value that we use to run our scoring, and we need to make sure we select unit test. So when I add this test case, the first thing I see is the order that it's in here, how many points, and feedback on failure. So I can say, make sure to use, or make sure to return some of the two arguments. And here's the interesting part. This is actually our unit test. Since the name of the student code, the file where the student code is, by default is just going to be file. So you can ignore this special highlighting. It will just interpret that normally. So we do from file, import calcsum, which is the name of the function. And here in self.assert, this is actually our test case. So I'll go ahead and change that assert true to assert equal, which is the one of the built-in assertion functions from UnitTest, which is a Python built-in library that you can use on coding rooms and off coding rooms as well. And I'll do a couple test cases here. So the first one we want to check is, does the base case work? Does 2 and 3 work? We can do as many of these as we want. So we can check 0 and 3 should be 3. Check -1 and 0 should be -1. We can do some arbitrarily large number, +1, and check that that works as well. So if any of these test cases fail, the entire test case will fail. We can also rename our test case and say test test addition. So we've actually just completed our first test case in Python. I'll walk through step by step what each of these lines does. The first step, import UnitTest. Here we're getting all the code from the standard Python unit testing library, again, that you can use on or off coding rooms. That's all standard Python. And you can find the documentation for this on the Python standard docs help websites, documentation sites. Next step is we import that function that our student defined, calcsum, and then we drop into the actual test case class. So here we extend this unittest.testcase file, and we implement a couple of the interface functions. The first one, notable one, is setup. So here you can write code that will run prior to your actual test case running. So for example, if you need to initialize a variable that you'd like to use in your test case, you can do that here as part of the setup. And if you want to do something after that, you can also add custom code to tear down. By default, we add these here, but they both have this pass keyword, which means that Python will basically just ignore these two. So you can add that in if you need. And then, again, the meat of our code here, the meat of our test happens in this test case function. You can actually have multiple of these test case functions by just adding them into this file, and you can give them your own names. And if any of those test cases fail, our current behavior is that the entire test case will fail for the student and they won't get any points. We will be adding partial credit to the unit test cases soon. And please let us know if you have an urgent use case for that, so that we can help you to prioritize the work that we put into the coding rooms product. But that's overall how it works. So if you need to give partial credit, we suggest creating multiple unit test cases by scrolling up here and adding a test case. And when you add a test case, those will actually be scored independently of each other. And one important thing to note when using our auto grading is that the unit test cases in your code are kind of separate to what we call test cases on coding rooms. So you can have multiple of each, but just the way that we calculate everything is really based on how you build test cases on coding rooms, not the actual unit test case. So that's it. We've implemented our first unit test case using the standard Python unit testing framework, and we can build our model solution. Soon you'll be able to run your model solution against the test cases. That will be rolling out in an update to assignments soon. But for now, our code is quite easy to run here. So we can go ahead and run it and verify that everything works. And so we get 5, which is great. That's exactly what we were expecting. And I can save changes to our model. Now all that's left is for us to actually just debug this in the student view. So what I'll do now is assign this to our class. By default, it's unassigned, which you see that published is false. And to test it out, I just click on Overview. I'm going to open this in a new tab. And now I'm previewing everything as if I were a student. Now I see my prompt here, and I can start working on this assignment. So I have my prompt on the right, or on the left here, and my code on the right. First time I run it, nothing happens, I get 0. And let's go ahead and run our base case. So when I click submit in the top right, again, I'm doing this as a student would, click submit, and Coding Rooms is actually running all of our test cases. So this might take a moment depending on how many unit test cases you're actually running, but the student should get feedback pretty quickly. So here, this is actually printed by Coding Rooms. And so you see here, the student actually sees which test case failed, and they see that they have assertion error 0, which is what they got is not equal to 5, which is what we were expecting. So let's go back and just address this test case first. So we can hard code this to return 5 and submit. So again, I'm trying to hack this as a student. Submitting, and this is the neat thing about the unit test cases. Our second test failed, so the student still gets 0. And you can see in the submissions, and as a teacher you can jump in and view all of this for each student. We have our submission history here. So every time that the student submits and runs test cases, you'll actually have insight into that. Let me go back and actually implement this. So we're going to return x plus y. And here when we return x plus y, we're expecting to pass our test case, and great news, we passed our test case. All this stuff is printed out from the standard Python unit test library, and so if you check the documentation there, you can learn more about how to customize this output. But broadly speaking, this is just pre-formatted out of Python, and then we actually read this to interpret the results of your test case. So now we've passed the first unit test case, and I can go back to our assignment to add more. All this happens in real time, so you don't have to like reassign. As you build test cases, they're automatically deployed to your students. So we can do input output matching, and let's assign 5 points to this. So do input output comparison, and let's add our test case here. And generally you run input output matching separate to unit tests. So actually, since I'm going to be adding an input reader, that's incompatible with unit tests, and the unit test cases will actually fail. If you need to provide input to the program, you can, using Python, you can directly write to the input from the unit test case, but that's really a kind of an anti-pattern. If you need to use input output, our suggestion is to use the input output mode. So here, I'm just going to do flexible equality, and let's write 2 lines here, 3 and 4, and we'll expect to get 7. Now, if we want to test multiple sets of numbers, we basically have to create multiple input output matching test cases. You can create as many as you want, but of course, as you saw in our unit test one, it's easier because you just add a line of code. And in fact, you can use random number generators to create logic around building randomized test cases on your own based on the problem as well. Great, so we set up a basic input output matcher here, and that's all auto-saved, but we'll need to go back to our code here and basically grab input twice. So we need to grab input here, and I believe we'll need to cast this to a string, or sorry, to integer before we can add them here. So I'm going to run this code, oops, and to simulate our test case as a student, I can add input here. So I'm building out our solution, great. It looks like our solution works when I provided input. You can also run this in the interactive terminal, and I'll just show you real quick what that looks like here. It take us a couple seconds for this to load. Great, we have our interactive terminal here, and I'm going to run that. Great, so we are running our file.py and enter 3, 4, and 7. So on coding rooms, you kind of have two options. The interactive terminal will soon be the default, but you can use either. Great, so now our code works, and I can try submitting it again. Now we're expecting our unit test case to fail because when it imports, it will try to run the input. Oh, and it looks like we did get a traceback. It did get an EOF when it imported, but it looks like the test case itself actually passed. So you have the initial exception, and you can actually log that here. But then when it called the function, that actually succeeded. So your unit test cases are pretty flexible here, and apologies for my lack of insight into Python. I'm mostly a Java and Go developer. But I'm sure that would be also configurable as far as like annotations and stuff in your Python unit tests. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us. And we can see that our input-output matching passed.
We really hope you enjoyed that demo session. If you have any questions or concerns, be sure to stop by our website. We have 24/7 live support chat, and you can drop us a note, and our support team will get to you right away.
Awesome. Thank you for checking out my Python unit testing demo and our input-output with Python on Coding Room's new assignments feature. Please let me know if you have any further questions about that, either in the comments here on this video or using our 24/7 live support chat that Angela mentioned. Also, if you have a chance, please head over to Product Hunt and show us some love there. We really appreciate you all and your support that you're giving to Coding Rooms and helping us reach more educators around the world. And with that, I think we'll end this podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.